So Gianluca Scamacca has signed for West Ham United from Sassuolo, fee of around £30 million, rising to 35 million with add-ons. It's a hefty fee, but he is a hell of a player, Sam.
Great player, and strikers cost a fair bit of money nowadays, don't they? Even if they're not very good, they cost about 20. So you're going to have to spend at least 30 to make sure that you get a good one. And I like Scamacca a lot. You know, I've actually been following him for about 3 years now, ever since he turned up at the Under-20 World Cup and was amazing without really scoring any goals. And actually got quite a lot of stick on Instagram one day for picking him out as one of the best players at the tournament, because despite the fact that he hadn't scored any goals as a forward. It's very on brand for me, isn't it?
Yeah, you like forwards who don't score.
Love them. But he was fantastic. And his strike partner, Andrea Pinamonti, had like 5. And people were like, he's actually the top scorer at the tournament, and you're picking out his friend who hasn't scored any goals. But he scored this one goal that was disallowed, that was like chest, turn, volley. A bit James Rodriguez at the 2014 World Cup. Nearly broke the net, was disallowed. Absolute travesty, one of the greatest goals ever scored. And that is Scamacca. You know, he plays with attitude. He plays with aggression. The way he strikes the ball is absolutely incredible.
It's fearsome, isn't it?
It's absolutely amazing. He's got such amazing technique. And, you know, as a target striker, as a focal point, you deliver the ball to his chest or to his feet and allow him to hold the ball up and start linking play. He's been so good in a 2 at Sassuolo or for the Italy unders. He's a great player. He really is. And he's got the kind of, I think he's got the attitude that can really make a striker fly. The problem is, West Ham, David Moyes, target man. I'm just thinking Sebastian Haller didn't really work out very well. Bit worried about this one too.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because Moyes likes his strikers to run the channels, to get in behind Michail Antonio. I mean, you know, he likes his strikers in that mould. And we talked about
Arnautovic as well.
We talked about Armando Broja, right? And how that was actually quite a nice fit, even if it wasn't. It was quite a lot of money for someone who'd only had a few good games really in Premier League. Well, half a season, half a season, I would say, of good performances. It was a lot of money they were talking about, but fit-wise, liked it a lot. This is very different. Scamacca has more experience, has a better goal ratio, has pretty much everything above Broja at this point in terms of where he is in his career, and it's a similar fee that was being discussed. Yeah. But the fit's very different, and I think it's interesting. We've talked about Scamacca in the past as a little bit of a kind of young Ibrahimovic kind of player. He reminds me of a young Zlatan in some ways. And I'm just a little bit concerned about the fit. But I suppose it all kind of depends on what West Ham bring in, Dean. So I suppose the next question is, what's the plan for the rest of this transfer market for Moyes and West Ham United?
Well, West Ham have to also change. They can't just keep playing the way they've had success in the past 2 seasons. So they've got to think beyond, well, this has been good, let's just keep doing this, because teams now know how West Ham plays. So by bringing in Scamacca, it gives teams something else to now to think about. And you look in the transfer market, they're looking at Kostic, like that's the deal they've been pushing to do before the season begins. Now, as we're recording this, they're struggling to make the breakthrough, but they're going to make a second offer for him. It's going to cost close to £20 million to sign Kostic in the end, I reckon. But I think they will get him. I think it's quite important they get him, because not only does Scamacca and Kostic have the same agent working on these deals, that West Ham see a parallel in having one and wanting the other. Like they feel like Scamacca's going to thrive if they can bring in the right kind of player to supply ammunition. And I haven't seen as much as Scamacca as Sam has, but I don't know, it's like from set pieces, but
very tall. Basically,
they want someone to put crosses into that area of the pitch, and it's going to be another tool that they use for next season. And I think that if they think Scamacca's going to be good aerially and is going to bully people a little bit, then you want to have crosses coming in. And obviously they've got Cresswell, but we know by now that they're looking to upgrade that position and look for something new. And Kostic is somebody that's been on their radar for a while, so that's interesting. Zielinski is quite an interesting one. They, again, struggling a little bit with it, but they have had signs of promise that they can make a breakthrough. And again, like that changes the way that you view the West Ham squad for next season, and like it causes the opponents to really rethink what they think West Ham are going to have in terms of trying to attack them.
Yeah, I'm all for depth. Again, they can't get through this season with more European football with a threadbare squad. They got very fortunate last season.
We talked about it, didn't we?
Yeah, they need the depth and they need the options, and you do need to diversify. It's something Liverpool have done really well over in the past with their forward line and the way they've changed things up, so they're not just guessable. but you also need to retain a very core strategy as to how to get your best players into the best positions on the pitch and all of them working together. And we're kind of risking something a little bit Aston Villa last season here with West Ham, where they bought Ings to pair with Watkins, but they didn't really have a plan for it, so they went 4-4-2, then they tried 3 at the back. Well, Leon Bailey can't play there. Then they signed Coutinho, so Buendia can't get into the team. It was all over the place. And West Ham just need to make sure that they have a very clear plan for how they get the best out of Antonio, who has been so good for them, to continue to get the best out of Jared Bowen, in sync with Scamacca. And if you put Kostic in, make sure that you've got the right defensive setup as well.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty tricky. It starts to look a bit difficult.
Well, I think obviously if Kostic comes in, you are looking at a shift to 3 at the back, aren't you? Because Kostic does his best work as a wing back, and that's where he's going to be able to provide what I like to call the deliverables in the box for the likes of Scamacca. And to be perfectly honest with you, Scamacca and Antonio as a front two is terrifying.
Yeah.
That is the kind of thing that gives defenders nightmares.
You just
know,
wonder
it's got
about
everything, hasn't it? But then where does Jared Bowen fit? Do him and Antonio rotate in that role next to Scamacca? Do the 3 of them rotate in up there and make things a little bit different depending on how they're playing? But it does strike me as Zielinski would be a good addition if this is going to be the way that West Ham go, because you have Rice and Souček in there. Obviously, they've signed Flynn Downs, who would probably play at the base and allow Souček and Rice to basically kick on and explore a little bit more, which we know is something that Declan Rice has been after for a while. And Souček getting in the box has been a major facet of how West Ham have played. But if you do then need to go slightly different, you can bring Zielinski in with Rice and Souček and have a player who's more willing to get into the final third and make things happen, who can score goals from range, who can make things happen on the edge of the box. That's a good signing if West Ham are going to go here and go 3-5-2. But it does feel like if Moyes wants his strikers to do what Antonio does, to do what Bowen does, and Scamacca is there, you need to change this system if you're going to make it work, because you cannot play him as a single man up top if you're going to make him run the channels, because that's just not his game.
Yeah, and it will make him a flop because there's high expectation on him. It's 30 to 35 million pounds. It's a lot of money. And West Ham have this terrible record with strikers anyway. I mean, half of the last 50 haven't even scored.
They haven't signed one for 1,000 days, have they, until this one?
Because the last 10 they got didn't work at all. Everyone since Marko Arnautovic and most of the ones before him were absolutely terrible. Simone Zaza, Jonathan Kayeri, the list goes on and on and on. It's really upsetting. So there's a lot of pressure on West Ham to make this go right, because after Sebastian Haller, who they basically ended up getting embarrassed by because he's been so good for Ajax and now he's moved to Dortmund, you've got to get this one right. So you've got to make the adaptation and you've got to make the changes that Dean refers to make sure that you get the best out of this guy. I just want to finish off with something super blasphemous. After the success of Mikel Antonio up front for the last couple of years, do you remember when he used to play wing-back?
Yeah, I was thinking
and he used to crash into the box at the back post and score headers.
Well, he'd love that if Kostic was on the other flag.
Antonio, Scamacca and Bowen. I'm just theorising here. Well, you never know.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's an option, especially against sides that you think you can dominate.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly more defensively minded in other games.
It's really hard for West Ham to get into that top 6 next. They were on the verge of doing something special last season, and they thought they might even end up in the Champions League at one point. And you look at this season and the way Arsenal has strengthened, Tottenham have got that depth now, Man United look reborn, and you're it's
and there's,
so hard.
And there's the spectre of Newcastle United in the
Exactly.
background.
So
and Arsenal look good.
And Aston Villa Aston Villa are striving to get into that conversation. So there's this new competition to just finish 7th next season is going to be there. So West Ham could have a really good season, but finish 9th and not have actually done that much wrong. And that's why you need to keep recruiting and moving on.
Absolutely. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe for more from us at Ranks FC.